To me, Indigenous cultures reflects back at a time when all of us were more connected to everything else. That we were connected across different ethnicities. We were connected all with the land, with the water, with the air, with the natural world, and realize that there is in the real world no disconnect between any of us or anything. And so you have to start off with that, to me, indigenous concept, which is now, to me, the concept of quantum physics. That everything does connect, everything is interrelated, and to understand that and to use that as a framework for understanding and knowledge and then methodology development is looking at the world in a different way, where the world has been disconnected by power, by separation, by divide and conquer, as systems of control and separation of people from their language, from their culture, from their traditional family and traditional family values, and to impose upon them a separate kind of way of looking at the world that asks them to accept themselves as conquered people, to accept giving up their traditional beliefs, their traditional values, their traditional language, their traditional relationship with the natural world, their traditional relationship with the land, with the water, and all living things. And that it's against the values of any of us to give up who we are, where we came from, what our ancestors represented, and how they symbolize them in language and practice of values and practice of models of working together and also models of change. Realizing that everything is connected, there's a reshuffling that goes on, but it's all still connected. And if you allow yourself to see separation, you accept racism, you accept sexism, you accept gender differences as different and not connected, you accept income as it's, disavowing those that are poor as being less important. You recognize older people as being having less value. So it's just the basic concept of everything is connected, everything is related, has to be the framework of indigenous thinking and indigenous methodology. And then from there, only then, it seems to me, you can break down the separation from race to economic separation, to gender separation, to age separation, all those things that keep us apart and keep us from working together to protect and maintain the earth, the water, and everything that sustains us.
So how does this play out in your classes and in the way that you teach?
Yeah. How it plays out is I understand the methodology also from a sort of a traditional physics perspective, where everything was seen as separate. The atoms were all seen as separate. That's how I was taught in physics, using the Tinker Toy kind of model, that all the atoms were separate. Quantum physics says there's no separation between the atoms, at all. And so understanding that separation is still the dominant institutional view of all of our major institutions, including our educational institutions, we still tend to practice from a separation perspective. So and people are raised from that perspective within all of our major institutions. So you have to compare. you have to compare. You have to say, this is the way we currently look at the methodology of community development. And it divides up our communities from each other. It accepts poverty as a way of life. It allows violence and drugs to be contained in certain separate areas rather than solving the problems. It creates areas of great wealth and great poverty. It allows the complete dissolution of the middle class, which is sort of in the middle. There's no longer a middle. The separation is more between the very rich and everybody else. So you still have to present that framework to say this is the reality of what we're dealing with. But here's another reality. Here's another reality that doesn't have to accept those separations. And you have to start from that framework and still help people understand that you have to organize people and resources both around understanding both perspectives that are literally at odds with each other but have to be reconciled with each other. That people still have to understand how finance works and how it allows the very rich to be now the 1%, but it has to also look at finance from the perspective of how you redistribute wealth. So that doesn't become the framework, because that framework leads to a breakdown of the human system, and then it's organized around money rather than people. So there always has to be, we have this is sort of the real world we're dealing with, but it's not the natural world. It's the organized power framework for divide and conquer, for separation, for favoring one worldview over another, and then compare it. But compare it by looking at it from the framework of the holistic worldview. Because if you look at it from the framework of the separation worldview, you'll never understand the holistic worldview. And that's what quantum physics says. You have to start from the framework of everything is connected, otherwise you can't understand the concept of everything being connected.